What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another weekly breakdown. We're going to talk about DXY, EU and GU. We're going to talk about my funded journey and everything about that. I really want to be a trader that's reflective of you guys, how you're going through your own journeys and struggles I'm facing, the pros and cons of being a funded trader, all of that. I think it's a great video for this one because last week's video was very slow. There wasn't many moves, there wasn't ideas, price was very indecisive. This week we got a lot more out of it, and really that's where good traders capitalize, right? What we can see before we talk about the funded accounts and the challenges, I actually took 2 wins this week, one on EU, one on GU, and overall you're looking at around 5.5R. So I've already got back profit for the month. I've not took a loss this month. We're halfway through, so at this point I wouldn't have a losing month. I can't see myself having 5 losses. I've done what I needed to do coming back from drawdown. And it's put me in a great position. But that's what trading's all about. I talked about everything that I was doing wrong in the previous 2 videos and how I need to rectify that. And as if by magic, it all just comes together. But it takes a lot as a trader to sit there in the drawdown for a month and a half and go, this is actually not the end. This is just the start. Because you get that one good week, one good trade. It can put you from being, I talked about it, I was in 3% drawdown. I'm up 1%. So that's on one of the accounts. You can see there. I took a fair few losses here. I actually took, let's have a look at this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-ish losses. And then these were split positions. These were 2 wins. So there you go. 40% win rate. Still able to get payouts from that. And this isn't the first, second, third, fourth payout now. We're now pushing on to getting up to like the 10th payout. 3 payouts in one for this week. We have got about $800, $900 profit after profit split on the first one. The second one, we're looking at around $600, but I do have a refund there for nearly £500. It's about $600, so that's going to be added on. And I'm risk-free on both of these, so really now all the upside without the downside. FTMO challenge, we were actually down quite bad on that. And what I did do down here, when we were down about 5.5%, you can see that. I dropped my risk to 1% per move, and I've managed to now get this from 5.5% down back to break even. So now we're in a position where we can push on with that, which is good. Finally, have actually got some profit with the fivers. I will do a video on the withdrawal process as I did for FTMO. But look, 1,500 profit, probably the best out of all the 3 at the minute, but I get the refund as well because the profit's only about $1,000. And yeah, with that, we'll see how the process goes, how long it takes. As for CTI phase 1, we're up 5.5%. We were down 2.5%. So we've overall made nearly 8%. I do risk higher, 1.5% on the challenges. We've got our 2 profitable days. Need about 12% more consistency. I just think as you take more trades, you're going to get that. So I still need 4.5% for phase 1 on that. But we only started that last month, so we've got good run now to push on. As for what I'm doing, I'm going to be merging my 2 100k FTMOs together that are funded and just risk 0.75. I'm going to stay with 1.5% on CTI and probably stick to 0.75 risk now. I've got the refund and see how that goes for the meantime. I think we're good to go with the week and how I caught these moves. So I'm not going to redraw all the weekly stuff. The daily stuff I will. What I really want to get out of DXY, I'm going to start with the monthly, is I spoke about how we had a significant issue coming up. We come down for a pullback at 107 at the end of last month, and at the very start of this month, we saw a big wick up. So this is last week's candle. We saw a significant wick up back to the monthly fill. I think that monthly level on the fill is massively significant because it's from where the push down come from, where we ended up consolidating for 2 years. When we test that level, we're going to need some serious strength to push through it. And if we're not getting that, we're going to need to see further downside. So based on this week, obviously the weekly candle closed bearish. We ended up seeing a fair value gap here respected that we just formed. In my opinion, if you're going to get a wick that's a 50 pip wick tapping into key level and a 100 pip body, you need to come up. That's the whole idea. If you fail to come up, you would pretty much say from that bearish candle, we have to, as a minimum, come and take this as a liquidity point to see further upside. So I'm already more bearish coming into the week on the DXY. As you can see on the daily time frame, we had last week where I ended up taking EU buys a bit too early. We had this fair value we come into twice. So at this point, I want to see this area respected to get the confirms for downside. Once we get that, it's easy sells. At this stage, just talking about more liquidity and the ranges we're playing. Obviously, that pullback, the whole idea of that pullback was we failed to take out this area. Then we saw a continue try up to come up, break that high, failed. So simple structure is, where was the low that formed this high, previous weekly high? Either this one or this one. Now what I'd say is, as you take that last week, you have to see more momentum than that. You have to see these daily fair value gaps break to give us the upside. Already, these candles aren't strong enough, and they're suggesting we may have issues breaking up. You've got to also see Friday's candle even took out previous daily low, still failed to engulf this POI here. So at the start of the week, I'm going to sit on my hands, be patient, as I said, look for the optimal opportunity, but really it has to be this wick to be cleared. As for EU, same thing. You've got to see that the month already had an indecisive previous monthly candle. We tried to break down to start the month, failed. I'd be expecting now 105 to be cleared. Previous weekly high is we haven't actually cleared this week. Let me get rid of this week. I thought that was this week, wasn't it? On the monthly, that's why. I thought on the weekly. So we can see from that monthly candle, as we come into the weekly, we're playing within these two levels. So when the weekly's already created a confirm, the next week has failed to break 102,500, and we close like that, weak bearish. We had to be clearing them lows if we're going to continue down. And one thing I think you can gather from this whole move down is the biggest strength was this move. Within 3 weeks, we moved a significant amount, 600 pips. It then took 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 weekly candles that made the low, only moved 400 pips. So already, in terms of how much momentum we have in that direction, we're significantly reducing the amount. Now, what I would say is, from the weekly perspective, if we cleared this high that obviously filled this area and we fell down, I'd be looking at clearing previous weekly high, coming back into 105. And really higher time frame, probably looking for that wick to go as well. So we can see on the daily what we've done. And this is important when you're producing weekly analysis for the upcoming week. You've got to understand where you're at, what happened and why. As for the structure, and it's actually more bullish, I would say. I did get in early last week trying to buy when we were already in the middle of that range. If you were to fib up as an area, this area to this area, I'd be trying to buy right within 50%. So when you're in a range, especially on the daily, getting in at the bottom for buys and the top for sells is always the best bet. Why was I not as much bearish anymore? Well, this high slash these highs, equal highs that form the lows, got cleared with bodies, and we then come back into liquidity. Why this area is so significant is it not only is the liquidity area, we actually formed an order block that made this high. Therefore, it's a significantly strong area where I deem now that we've broken bearish structure, and this low, as long as we respect it, we're going bullish. Therefore, looking at this price action to the previous week, we created a lot of areas that we never swept. And even though at the point here it looks like it's going down, which it does, I'm really looking for another failure to the downside to start the week to go up. And I think that's where a lot of traders struggle. In these periods where trend on the weekly is changing, there's so many times in the last 2 years where if you go onto your data and look at these periods where we actually changed the weekly and the monthly overall trend, you can really do well, because this is where a lot of traders are still selling, and they're selling when times are getting exhausted. And if you do have these lows as targets, they may never get continued. And you can even tell from the weekly, if you look at what's going on down here, have you just formed equal lows on the weekly? I would say you have. At that point, this could be the final low before we push up, which means this weekly low is getting respected. So I'm waiting for that. I think as well, what you need to understand is this big candle Monday threw everything off, but it is a wick. So realistically, from where the body closed, this whole area is a wick. That's why I am not interested in selling until we see something below that. Therefore, bullish candles to confirm upside. You're coming up to previous weekly high, this liquidity play, and this high. Because overall, if this test of 125 failed to take the low out, then we're going to, as a range on the monthly, we're going to take that high out. So that was it's probably the most confident I've been in analysis for a very long time. And having that confidence at a time of drawdown, it proves why I keep getting payouts. And I'm not saying I'm the best trader out there, nowhere near. But what I do is I do keep calm, and I still can make good analytical decisions when I need to, and pull the trigger. That's the most important thing, pull the trigger. So yeah, I'm waiting for that to start the week. GU, as for what we did around here, even more so, if we look at the monthly, a little bit more difficult because we did break into this new range between 125 and 123. We started the month, we pulled back into this area here, 123, and we had a weekly bullish close. After clearing the previous weekly high, we still failed to see closures back below here. We did this gap fill and we closed bullish. I just think it was so obvious that we're going to look to clear previous monthly high, because that high gave us a significant bullish candle reaction to close the month. And that's where, although we're holding this area at the minute, there's no stopping us coming outside of it to potentially take out areas to see us fall back inside of it. So really this week, I was more bullish as well. But a lot of people might be saying, yeah, but what happens when you're in a bearish leg? Because, of course, you're in this bearish leg, wherever you'd like to look at it from, this high, I would say this high. If you're in this bearish leg, you'd be saying, yeah, but we should now be heading down. And I'm going, okay, fair enough. You induced this potential internal liquidity, and that could have been enough to take you down. What you have to see, though, is some conviction. And to finish that week, you didn't see enough conviction. When the week gives you a significant gap and it doesn't come back and fill where the week ended up starting for that gap, I just, as experienced on this current pair now, at least looking at this for a year, I've seen many times that if we don't get that, we're going to go the opposite way. So at this point, in terms of POIs, on the bearish leg, you've already come into the very last point, which is this daily fill. And you can go on the lower time frames, there's a few other areas, but that high definitely cleared the last few areas. So if we do show signs of not coming down to clear this low as a minimum, then this high should get cleared. And that's why I think there was such good ideas for buys on this. Also, we have this daily fair value gap here that we've been holding about 8 times, which would also stop me. You might say, well, that candle broke it, but I would say no, it didn't, because with my gaps candles, I would deem this to be price continued bearish, made a huge wick of like 100 pips and closed bullish. So that's what I'm looking for. If we go on to DXY for the week, what did Monday do? Okay, we actually failed. We failed to break. I would also say that the trend transition point, we're bearish on DXY because we cleared this liquidity. Once you clear a strong area of liquidity, if we don't then come and clear the highs, then already after you see that high, at that point I would say this is the injection of volume. This is where we form POIs on a daily. This is really our high to be respected to see the downside further. And I think that Monday confirmed there that DXY was not going to carry on up yet. Until I see a break of that, I'm not interested in any sells on EU or GU. What did EU do on Monday? Didn't give you much. Now what we do see is we respected this order block. So I've got that in. And we can tell that we've closed weak bearish off it. We don't really have a significant option for a buy yet. So I'm still holding fire for that. And in these ranges, it's the best solution. You can't be getting in too early because that's where you've got a higher chance of losing. If you look at GU, we actually saw candle break below this daily. At that point, I was more bearish on GU, expecting further downside, but because it didn't align with DXY, Did not look for any sells on that. Also, the same thing happened here. You could also mark this up as a daily POI. And that makes it very difficult because you've already had 4 candles now that have failed to clear below it. Likewise, selling down into this level, really difficult. You know, you're past the halfway point. You'd want to be selling from up here if you were looking for that downside, seeing how we go. But then that was Monday. So Tuesday, we actually see exactly to a T what I predicted is we not only engulfed the previous daily candle, we closed outside of this daily, we took the previous daily high, we did everything right. Now for me, as a minimum, you're going to be looking at that wick. But as I spoke about in the weekly, it's that level. It's that level. So you can have targets here and at previous weekly low, and I did end up closing out some positions around there. But I think with enough patience and waiting for it to play out, you're going to get to that low. If we look on EU, very strong bullish candle. What do? We failed to hold this fair value. We just obviously engulfed it. We saw a tap back into the order block, failure again. And on the GU here, I mean, if you're bearish at that point, then I don't know what to say. There's no areas of POIs on the daily that is going to stop us from going up. You've had at least the 35, 40 pip wick. So 35 pip wick back into the daily. You've now had 5 candles fail to break lower than this wick. You have a high to test. You're trending bullish within a bearish leg. At what point are you going to believe that we're going bullish? Because, okay, price tried to hold below this, failed. Price retested twice, pushed up. Price pulled back, retested the same level with a deeper wick, made a better low, and then formed a further high. So you're now in higher highs and higher lows. You're now pulling back. You have an option to play up to the high, and you're expecting this leg to break. I mean, it's so easy, but then again, if you marry a bias too much, then it's not going to work out. So coming into that Wednesday, I was looking for trades on both. Really what I want to see on EU is I want to see the daily fill, which is around here. And same for GU, it's a bit closer, but I was looking for that. As we go on the lower time frames, I'll show you my entry. So really I'm basing entries on daily bias. If we were to go on the 1 hour, and we skip Asian session. So here we go. What I'm looking for is areas of interest. I liked this 1 hour gap here where we ended up wicking down, took some liquidity and actually made a high. And with these trades, I had my stops around I think I had 103 or, yeah, it was around here. And I was targeting this high. I think that's around right. I think I had slightly higher stops actually. I had slightly lower stops. I ended up having a second position at the daily imbalance fill, a little bit higher in case we got tagged in. And then I was actually looking for the play up to this liquidity wick. This is EU, isn't it? So yeah, we had trades around there. So about 3R each. In case we did not come into this area, a bit lower than the imbalance fill, I ended up leaving it. But that's our leg. And we're looking for trades in around the discount / 50%, anywhere in here. Stops below POIs that form the leg and playing up to take liquidity really. As for GU, our setup was similar. We had an entry literally just at the imbalance fill and it was only just about 2R. We had a target in and around that here, the previous monthly high. It was about 70 pip stop. The second position was a little bit easier. We ended up looking on the 4 hour and yeah, ended up getting in around this 4 hour fill. Not the fill, the start of the fair value anyway. So basically I'm looking down the time frames of POIs that are interesting / let's just say more enticing. The POIs that generated the most liquidity or you know, whatever you want to say. I think that 1 hour order book was quite good as well. I don't think I actually got in off that. I waited for the earlier POI fill and I targeted lower. So you're looking at around 2.5 and a 2.2. If we look at what happened for the day, DXY ended up taking a previous daily high. We wicked back into that weekly. I know we just missed it. ended up coming into this weekly wick that I didn't mark in, but the previous weekly left the wick. We wicked back into it, continued down. This was when CPI come out, and this is where, like, if you trade the way I trade, a lot of the time you do get tagged in by news. That means you need swing accounts on the funded. You need to be able to allow yourself to get entered in around 2 minutes in between news. A lot of the trades I take do end up coming in with news. It's just the way I trade. I wouldn't say I'm heavily enticed by the fundamentals, but goes to show, you know, CPI come out high, initially good. Watch the Powell speech, things were not looking quite as good. Initial data was taken a certain way, and then when it come to higher inflation, how they're going to balance interest rates, then the harder questions got asked at the press conference, and you ended up seeing a bit of a significant push up to the upside there. So EU ended up moving nice. And what I want to see is when I'm getting tagged in with news, especially high impact news, I want to see us get a knee-jerk reaction back to the opposite direction. Same for GU. We got tagged in at CPI on Wednesday. We saw that pullback. Had our stop losses respected there. And then really just let the trades play out over the next day or two. So much about tariffs. You can probably see here. We did get a lot of pullbacks. So TP1 got hit yesterday on EU about 4 p.m. We got a significant pullback. And then second TP got hit around the daily close. And we ended up coming up. And we've not hit 105 yet. I do expect that to come in. I do also kind of expect this high to be cleared as well. And at least make a further new high. Now we're bullish on EU, structure-wise, on the daily time frame. As for GU here, similar thing happened. Hit initial TP yesterday, and this morning I ended up closing out a little bit early. My actual TP, I got out around 600, so there was about a 2R position rather than anything else. I think it was literally 2R. That position ended up being just over 2R, so yeah, for the week, up 5.5. And they were the simple positions I took. I wasn't going for huge R. Just happened to be both of them set up well. I don't always trade both EU and GU just because they move similar. They both, in their own aspects, have to set up the right way. But luckily they did. And what we've been seeing, because of the way things go with Trump, we're seeing them heavy pullbacks. So we're getting that. But yeah, guys, see you in the next one. Take care. Peace out.